Welcome to the Valentine's Day house tutorial. I am so thrilled to show you how to make this. With the purchase of this template, you should have received all the recipes and written instructions that you'll need, and you'll need to print that template out. Before we start, there's a few items you'll need to prepare for. All of this is demonstrated within this video, but remember you'll need a base with a light taped down, a batch of gingerbread dough, heart cookie cutters or some small sharp paring knife, hard window candy like Lifesavers or Jolly Ranchers, a batch of royal icing, pink food coloring which is optional, decorating candy, I used the red hots and conversation hearts you see in this video, and a batch of snow frosting if you choose to put snow on the ground. And remember, this is all up to your own interpretation. You don't have to use what I did, but it is there as a suggestion for you. Okay, let's dive right in. Even before getting your chilled dough out, you'll need to crush the candy, and I like to do it in a Ziploc bag, not in like a food processor, because that tends to get the pieces too small. You want them nice and chunky like you see in the video. Now I'm using pink watermelon and red cherry Jolly Ranchers. I love the effect Jolly Ranchers give for stained glass. It's so vibrant and beautiful. Now if you use Jolly Ranchers, I really suggest buying a LED light bulb to put within your house. They don't radiate heat like incandescent bulbs do. And since they have a lower melting point temperature, I want to make sure I don't heat up the windows too much. Please take the time to read about the differences I've discovered between Jolly Ranchers and Lifesavers and the materials you received, so you have an action plan of what you want to use in your project. Begin to roll out your dough on a sprayed and floured surface, like on the back of a cookie sheet. My dough was pretty hard to roll out because I was using leftover Christmas scraps that I had frozen. Yours shouldn't be that tough to roll out. And my template, of course, looks nothing like yours because it's the original one I created on cardboard. Now let me remind you that the heart house will take 2 cookie sheets. And what I've done is I've put one roof, one front, and one side on each cookie sheet. Okay, here I've zoomed in on what might be the most technical part of this project, is making the roof, because what I'm doing is essentially carving out 2 little hearts within the big heart of the roof, where I will fill in Jolly Rancher candy to make a stained glass roof effect. And so I pull this out and put it next to it. You can make an extra little cookie on the side. And then I move the cookie cutter, and it's just loose in there, but it will be glued together once you add the Jolly Rancher candy and it melts together. And then I carve out another little heart within, and that will form your roof. And then go on to use a small knife or little cookie cutters to make whatever shaped windows you want in the rest of your house. I think that's the back of my house and side. It's ready to go in the oven. Bake it for 13 to 15 minutes and start preparing cookie sheet 2. I'll just let the footage roll, but basically I'm doing the same thing I did on cookie sheet 1 and making a side piece, a front piece with a door, and another roof piece, and also carving out whatever windows or cookie cutters I want to use on those. I temporarily stop on cookie sheet 2 because cookie sheet 1 is ready to come out of the oven. So I put it aside, and as you can see, I was obviously multitasking with too many gingerbread projects at once because it looks like it's a little burned. I wasn't too concerned with that because I know I'm gonna color the sides with royal icing with pink frost, with a pink color. But I either rolled it too thin or I overbaked it, and I'm guessing I overbaked it. But next you'll just see that I am filling in all those gaps with my pink and red Jolly Rancher mixture, which I'll then put back in the oven right now for 5 minutes to bake, and you'll want to watch that closely so it doesn't bubble. And while those windows bake, I pull back cookie sheet 2 to finish up carving out the roof and any windows that I want to place around the house to get that ready to bake for the first time. bake sheet 2 now, and your cookie sheet 1 is finished, coming out of the oven right now. And what I'm doing, you only have like a minute to do this, but I'm scraping off any bits of Jolly Rancher that got on the sides of the gingerbread house where I don't want it to be seen. Cookie sheet 2 after it's baked 13 minutes for me, and I left this clip in to show you I'm human. Look what I did. I forgot to put windows in before it baked to make the holes for windows. Look at this, hot. I can barely touch the cookie cutters, but it's okay. Even if you make that mistake, I've done it many times before, you can still make the holes for windows in time. Just do it right when it's out of the oven, before it's cooled off too much. And then I'm proceeding to go on and fill all my spaces with the Jolly Rancher mixture, which will then go back in the oven, you know, for another 5 minutes. Yippee! So now your pieces are all done baking and you have your house ready. I didn't know my action plan on decorating yet, but I was just going through the motions, and I took my apple jelly, which you warm in the microwave for at least a minute. I think mine takes a minute and 15 seconds to get it like liquid. And then you coat it on all the areas of your gingerbread, and it'll make it sparkle and shine and be beautiful. What I didn't know at the time is that I was covering up half these walls anyway with royal icing, so I didn't need to put it everywhere. And I like to do this step when I know I'm going to leave it for a while, like at the end of a long night, where it has the whole night to dry. So then when I wake up the next day, I'm ready to decorate and I don't have to deal with sticky, tacky pieces. It's decorating time! This should be the fun part. So before I started this Valentine's Day house, I really tried to educate myself more on frosting techniques, since I knew I wanted to color the walls of this house pink. And so what I'm doing is you take a normal batch of royal icing, a large batch, and remember to cover it up immediately or else it will start to dry out. So in my normal electric mixer bowl, I have that covered down to the surface, not just over the top of the bowl, but where it's actually touching the frosting, so no air gets trapped in there. And then I color with my food coloring about a cup's worth of frosting into a little bowl to get the right color I want, and then I dilute it with water. And what I'm going to do, I have a little parchment cone. You can use a decorating bag, whatever you're comfortable with. So to teach you what I did, I have to teach you a little bit about consistencies with royal icing frosting. And if you don't plan on doing any of this, just fast forward to the next part. But if you want to know what I did, first you have to learn the outlining consistency, which is adding 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon of water to your cup of royal icing frosting in a bowl. And what that looks like is a glob of frosting falling slowly off your spoon, like in this video. The flooding consistency is just adding a little more water. So 2 to 3 teaspoons of water to that cup of frosting. And when you notice in this video, the spoon is lifted and the lines disappear within 10 to 15 seconds within the bowl. And that's the flooding consistency. So what I'll do is I'll outline all my pieces, and then I will go back and flood them in with the thinner, runnier frosting. And the outline is there to provide a border so the flooding doesn't run off the edge, if that makes sense. And when not in use, you immediately cover your frosting to the surface with some type of saran wrap or plastic. For those that want to copy my house exactly, I will just leave you alone for a little bit and let you watch as I decorated these pieces, as I outlined them first and then filled them in with color and candies, and you can observe how I did it. When you get to the flooding stage like I'm doing right now, you have to work quickly. A good thing about using royal icing as a flooding frosting is that it has a lot of protein in from the egg whites, which is why it dries so fast. So you can't go around and fill in pink everywhere around your whole heart and then try to put candy down, because it would all be dry by the time you do that. So I do it in little sections, and by doing that you avoid having a line showing where one section dried and the next wet one starts. Alright, your decorating's done, so now you can prepare your base with the light. You can do this in advance, but either way you have to wait for your pieces to dry. For this house design, I use a 10 or 12 inch cake board as my base, because it's not a very heavy house. And then you can see I'm taking out the bulb that came with it and put in an LED one, just because I'm still figuring out Jolly Ranchers and I know they have a lower melting point and I don't want them to get overheated since they are on my roof as stained glass windows. So, besides, save power. And then you go around and securely tape down your cord with duct tape or electrical tape. The pieces should be dried and the base is made and you're ready to assemble. I like to start in the back, and then you should have containers, like I have lotions and molasses bottles sitting there to help prop up the walls as you're assembling them, just in case they start to tip. And then you go around and do the sides. And then you can see before I close it up with the foreside, I like to reinforce it while it's still easy to get in there with frosting on the insides of the walls. Now that the sides seemed stable enough, I went ahead to start on the roof, and I put a generous amount of frosting on the top, and then I picked up, it was hard to pick up those heart roof pieces. I didn't know where to hold it with all the candy, but I found putting pressure against the stained glass and holding it for a couple seconds or a minute helped stabilize it enough to dry. And then I went underneath it to just reinforce the roof line. And then add your door. When you get to this point with your walls up and roof on, you'll see just how magical it becomes. This is actually my favorite part, is doing the outside and the yard and the pathways. Where I'm from, it is still winter in February and it snows, so I chose to do a snow yard. You can do whatever you want, but I kept it kind of simple. And I used the candy that I used within the project. So I did a simple path out of the cinnamon hearts and the conversation hearts placed around the yard. I should note that you don't need a full batch of snow frosting. This is just a tiny little yard and house, and you don't even use it on the roof. So you only need half of what the recipe calls for, but remember it takes 7 minutes to make it over a double boiler on the stove. So when you go to the effort of making it, you either just use half the recipe or you can plan ahead and have maybe a side of cupcakes or cookies or treats. The frosting is delicious. So, and people use this all the time, this recipe, so you can use the other half of the recipe on treats for your kids or for friends or family or for yourself. So just know that it will make plenty and you will have extra if you make the entire recipe. So there you have it, your adorable little Valentine's Day house. It's so cute, everyone will love it, and it will bring smiles to everyone's faces. Thanks for coming along with me, and I hope it was super simple to follow and that you can do this for yourselves. Please email your finished creations to thegingerbreadfairy@gmail.com, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. If you aren't following me yet, please head on over to Instagram and follow me at the Gingerbread Fairy to get the latest and greatest and see all my new creations, as I'm trying to branch out and make this more seasonal other than just Christmas time. And I can't do this without your support, so I really appreciate it, and I would love to be able to keep making new creations for you in the future. Until next time, take care.